Hi, my name is Elaine Rasmussen. I'm the founder and CEO of Social Impact Now. We are a social finance and impact investing advisory firm. We sit in the intersection of finance, economic and community development, and impact. We are located here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. I was a part of, I believe it was cohort 2. And my business at the time that I was in the cohort was, I was at a crossroads. I'd had the business for about 5 years at that point, past early stage, but maybe not necessarily squarely in the growth stage. What inspired me to do this business came out of my work in working not only in corporate America, but spending the immediately preceding 8 years in philanthropy. I was working at a national organization that worked to advance more impact in philanthropic giving. And so I started to see that while there was a lot of great intention around wanting to have social impact, there was a couple of pieces of misalignment. One, there was a misalignment between what was happening on the investing side or the endowment side of philanthropic organizations and or high impact projects and the output or the outcome that people were actually looking for. People would design an outcome and not necessarily have the dollars or the investment match how they were going to actually get there. So you would start on these projects or you would start with these endowments that had great intention, however, would eventually fall flat because the work was not set up in a way where the inputs would match the outcome that they were desiring. Because of my background in finance, I had been a stock analyst before. I'd worked in finance and my work in community and economic development nationally, working in rural communities, Native American communities, and underinvested communities in metro and second and third ring suburbs. I thought that I had a talent or skill to actually help people make sure that they aligned what they wanted to do and the outcomes and the structure that was needed to ensure that those outcomes actually happen. So this business was really, really important to me because I was seeing that while there was a lot of money that was going out to different communities, the way the money was going out and to whom the money was going to was not in alignment with actually moving communities that had been systemically or historically underinvested to be set up for success. A lot of the money that was invested was still through a charity lens, as opposed to a self-empowerment, a self-reliance, a self-determination lens. And so for those folks who really wanted to make sure that that was the lens that they brought to the investments that they were making in communities, I wanted to make sure that they were set up for success. The challenge that I was facing before I joined the cohort really centered on where was I going to go with the business. Every project that I had worked on had been so individualized and so customized. It was definitely going to be hard to create something that was scalable because every project had their own outcomes or every individual had their own outcome they wanted to see in their portfolio. And so you're really dealing with the human behind the money. And so as you can imagine, with all of that, every single human or every single project was very, very different. And building a scalable business, very, very difficult. And as much as I tried, I could not find a through thread, that repeatable framework to be able to scale the business. So at that point that I came into the cohort, I was thinking about, one, did I still want the business? Two, if I wanted to keep the business, what did it look like? What was the business model to scalability? How could I do that? And once I went through that, was that what I wanted to do? To really ask some very, woman in the mirror questions that I was wrestling with. Some of the things that really felt the most uncertain was if I were to create a business model that was actually scalable, would there actually be an audience for it? You can build all the models that you want, but if nobody wants what you're selling, then it doesn't really matter. And as far as what was at stake, if things didn't change, was really me approaching burnout. I knew that I couldn't continue the work and working in the work the same way I was. I had a small staff. I was eventually going to get burned out, and I didn't want that to happen. So it was really important to me figure out what could be the business model. Ideally, have a business model that resonated for me, that felt good for me, that felt values aligned, that felt mission aligned with where I was trying to go and the impact that I was trying to have, not only in my community locally, but nationally and possibly international. The elements of the cohort that I think were the most impactful were two. One was meeting my fellow cohort members and just hearing the different kinds of projects that they were working on. Some of them were working on some pretty unique things. And so I felt, as somebody who was also working in a very unique and distinct industry or type of work, they could understand my struggles as far as trying to find what's the sweet spot. The other thing that was really, really impactful, I had a really great mentor that was working with me. He had some really great ideas, had some really good questions for me to really consider how and what the model could be for the business. Some of the insights that I had were really around some of the feedback that I got from the mentor, which was really focused on what could be the possible business models that made sense as far as scaling the business to be a multi-million-dollar business. Since the cohort, I've made a number of shifts. And one of those shifts is actually to move completely out of the impact space. Part of that was, while I was able to identify a business model, the business model that was created, one, it wasn't feasible, meaning there were too many resources that I didn't have to be able to get the business to that particular point. And I think that the industry wasn't ready for the model that I had. So the thing that I like to talk about is, if you remember iPods, nobody realized that they needed 1,000 songs in their pocket until they needed 1,000 songs in their pocket, right? So, and my work was very similar. Like, once people hear what I did, they're like, oh, I need that. But there was no kind of marketing or there was no kind of story that you could tell, because the whole idea of impact, and particularly the intersection of impact and finance, was still very new. I think there's a lot more opportunity now because the language and the lexicon has seeped into more broader mainstream. It's still not mainstream completely, but I realized that I really wanted to shift my work to have a more broader impact than individual or project by project or company by company. And so while the cohort was amazing, I've done a lot of shifts in my thinking and where I am. I've had several life changes. And so the business that I had just no longer fits for me. And so I'm in this now another process of transition of really creating something different as it relates to wealth activation and wealth education, and thinking about working with folks to be more personally aligned their money with their values, but also understanding where the levers of wealth and activating their wealth for impact. One of the things that throughout all of this that has been really important to me, and I share this with lots of other folks, forward action creates action, right? Without forward action, there is no traction. And so for me, I don't have to have it all figured out. I just need to keep moving forward. And through that process of moving forward, that is when I learn the things I need to learn. I meet the people I need to meet, and the world just continues to open up for me.